Good evening, Safe Space family. Thank you so very much for stopping by Safe Space. And for those of you that have never been by Safe Space before, Safe Space is a place has evolved into a place of storytelling, telling stories of all types of people that have been in all types of situations from, and I don't know why these two or three particular stories resonate with me, but I've told so many wonderful stories, but stories of addiction, of a 44-year struggle, stories of people losing loved ones to murder and having to wait for their bodies to be discovered. But the theme, as the wonderful story that we're going to tell tonight, is that through perseverance with God, that you find yourself on the other side of all of those horrendous things that you're gone through or that you are going through, and that you can never be too far away, too dirty, too nasty, have committed too many horrible things for God. He is always ready and able to receive you, pick you up, dust you off, clean you off, and set you on a high place. Tonight, we have a wonderful guest that I met while I was on vacation. And God was so good that for some reason we were drawn to one another. She was at the hotel for a conference, and I was there to relax a little bit. And she had such a riveting story. We were drawn to one another, and we began to talk. And she told me about her wonderful book. Isn't that book beautiful? And the title of the book is What They Meant for Evil: How a Lost Girl of Sudan Found Healing, Peace, and Purpose in the Midst of Suffering. We have Rebecca Deng here tonight with us. She is one of the lost girls, and we've heard a lot about the lost boys, but she is one of the 89 lost girls that escaped the civil war in Sudan in the late 80s, coming into the early 90s. She found her way to America and has created herself a wonderful life. But she has a riveting story. Welcome to Safe Space, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, my sister. Wow, what a wonderful introduction. Thank you. You are such a joy. Today, as I met you like 2 months ago or 3 months, seemed like yesterday. Thank you.
You were such a joy from the moment that I met you, and we just began to talk as if we had known each other forever. But I find that to be true when you meet someone with the kindred spirit. You have a story, I have to say, unlike any story that I've ever known of. I remember hearing about the Civil War in Sudan. This is the second one, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the second civil war. And I remember hearing about the Sudanese armies, about you all being displaced from your villages, from your homes in the late 80s, coming into the early 90s. And God would have it, 30 years later, I would meet someone that had a firsthand experience and account and lived through it. So, Rebecca, we're going to start. I read your book. It is amazing, from the fact that you all were living a peaceful, normal life, always with war in the background, but far away, never having to be, because you were a child. You were a child protected by your parents, your mom, your grandmother. And I loved hearing the stories or reading about the stories about your grandmother. I'm a grandmother's girl, and how she protected and provided for you. So start out telling us how this happened, how it affected you, what happened in leaving. I read it, but I want my audience to hear how you were literally ran out of your village while your mom was giving birth to your younger sister, and you had to leave your mother behind and leave with your grandmother and your uncle's family. Just fill us in, or start wherever you like to, wherever the Holy Spirit leads you to share, because I believe this is going to bless someone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, like I was born in Sudan, southern part of Sudan. Currently now South Sudan become an independent country in 2011.
Mhm.
So I was born into a Dinka tribe. Dinka people are cattle herders, and they grow crops. So they grow sorghum, maize, which is corn, and different vegetable and yeah, so the cattle herders. So my life growing up, I have a typical childhood life, 3 meals a day, because sometimes when people hear stories of the continent of Africa, people only see the other part of, like, starvation and war, but they don't know that there are places that is so peaceful and there's no starvation and there's no diseases. People are just living a normal life. So that was my life, and my family were quite very wealthy because my grandmother had over 1,000 head of cows. So
And
when
she
you
had
have a lot
beautiful
of cows
gardens,
like that, you are a wealthy person. And then my father was in the military,
right?
so he was the one of the commanders
Commander.
in. Yes, and a minister at the same time in the military and a minister. So he was a Christian, but was a commander. And I just heard that they are fighting a war. And when I asked what was the war about, so there is an economic war, also religious war, because most people from the South are black and either are Christian or traditional believers. And northern part of the country came into Sudan through Egypt and other areas as business people, and most of them are Muslim background. So when in 1980s the government of Sudan proposed what they call share a law that everybody will be in Islamic faith. So that
Mm-hmm.
didn't settle well with a lot of Southerners, because Southerners are either traditional African belief or Christianity. Because when people think of Christianity, they associate it to Western culture. But
Mm-hmm.
my people, the people from the south, are the Nubian people, which are the early Christian people. And you read in, the Ethiopian maniac and all of that, and Queen of Ethiopia in the Bible, and that region is Sudan. Ethiopia was under Sudan. So Christianity have been there before the Roman Empire. So
Wow.
that was the contribution of war. So division in religion, division in economics. Most wealth come from the south, the oil and all kind of mineral, but they were controlled by the northern government. So I just heard about it when I was a child. There's a war going on, but I was living peacefully
But
on
you were
the
very young.
Nile.
You were very, very young, between 4 and 6
Very, yeah,
years old.
yeah.
So
So,
I can imagine that things were not quite totally, you didn't quite understand, because you said in the book, when something went awry, you had a feeling in your chest. You would swell up in your chest, even though you didn't quite understand the depth of what had happened.
mhm.
So you gave a feeling. First of all, I want everybody to get this book. It's definitely on Amazon. I saw it on Amazon, even though I bought mine when I saw her on vacation, and it's autographed. Okay, so I
Mhm.
want to make everybody jealous because mine is autographed. But it is definitely a read that takes you to a place of history and a place of information that I think is instrumental in understanding the perseverance and the trust and the courage that she had to have with being literally ran away from her home, of everything that she knew as young as 4 years old. She didn't really even understand what was going on. You stated in the book that you ran and ran and ran and ran when you and your grandmother left, and you kept thinking that you guys could stop,
Mhm.
and your grandmother kept taking you further and further into the jungle.
Mhm. Yeah, so we left when we were leaving our village. My grandmother say, "Oh, you're just going away for 1 week, and when the soldiers go through the town, you will come back." And then week turn into month turn into a year. So by the time we've been walking for a whole year, we find ourselves at the border of Sudan, now South Sudan, and Kenya.
Right.
Yeah, and that was the first time I heard of the word refugee, because I remember we were settled in a area and they say, oh, the United Nations is deciding now if you will go to Kenya as a refugee. And I'm like, what is a refugee? And they say, oh, it's somebody that is kicked out of their country because of their religious belief or race, ethnicity, that the government is discriminating them. And I was so confused because I never heard of the word before. And that's one of the things when I always tell people, when people think of immigrant and refugee, immigrant is a person that premeditate, like, oh, I can no longer live in this area. I'm going to leave, even if it costs my life or even if it is difficult. Some can take the airplane, some can take a boat and maybe perish in a boat or make it. But a refugee, they don't even have that premeditation. That decision is made for them. So you can be sleeping and then you wake up and it's like fire everywhere and gunshots. So you are running for your life. And
You're
then when
forced
you
to leave.
find yourself at some border, the UN have to declare you now as a refugee. So that's how I end up in Kenya. And I was in a refugee camp
Or
for 8 years.
yes,
8 years.
yes.
So when let's say, for example, a few months ago, I heard there were refugees coming from South Africa. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. Like for you to be a refugee, you have nothing. Like you don't have food with you, you don't have material thing with you, you literally just running. Some of them, I remember when we left our village and our clothes were left. I had a dress that I had on, and my stepsister had a dress on, but we have my uncle wife who was an adult, and she didn't have a clothes on. She only had an underwear when they were running at night. So what they did, they took my dress and my half sister dress and make it as a skirt for her, and we were naked because we were kids. They're like, you guys can be naked, but she's an adult. So that the devastation of how somebody become a refugee, they don't have a choice and they don't think I'm gonna go. The UN decide where you go. And then when we want to go to what they call a resettlement country, you apply. So for me, I came through the program, the Lost Boys of Sudan, which brought about 3,400 or 800 boys and
I
only
think the book
7,
said 3,700 and
yeah,
80,
and
37.
only 79 girls.
Right, right. That's what your book said. 79
Only
girls.
79 girls.
And you
And
were
there's a reason why that happened. Most of the time, the girl in a refugee camp got married at a young age, like
14.
13, 14,
Mm-hmm.
mostly arranged marriages or forced marriages. And the second thing, when people were going to America or wherever, the caretakers of the girl, they didn't trust sending them to unknown land.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only thing we knew about America was really the pop culture, but
Mm-hmm.
we knew nothing about America. We never been to United States. And also the third part, the process to be interviewed is so long and lengthy. So when you hear people saying, oh, these refugees are coming, we don't know, no, no, no. It take a long time. It's a State Department, it's a Homeland Security. You get interviewed like 5 different times and they twist questions. So if you messed up one question and it's not lining up, you are disqualified. So for me, I had a translator that translate for me. I didn't know English then. And then when I arrived, few more people arrived. But then, so I arrived November 6, 2000, the very first plane that touched the soil, the United States soil. I was in that plane. And then few other more flights happened. And then September 11 happened and the whole thing was shut down. So I was
So you
lucky.
came on September 6th,
November 6, November
November,
6, 2000. And
and
then
so
when
September of the next year
the
was
next year, because there were people in the process, like I say, it take a whole year for you to be interviewed. Those who were in a pipeline to come when September 11 happened, that's it.
it
So
was
I
totally
know friends that were approved to be coming and they are still there. So they've been in a refugee camps in 1992. So that's like 30 something years later.
so they're still in the refugee camps in Kenya
Yes, in Kakuma
today.
Refugee Camp. And right now it's a disaster what is happening in Kakuma Refugee Camp actually because they just cut the US aid and some money to the UN. So normally they used to get like a scoop of corn and beans or rice, but now there's nothing like that. So
Let
there's
me
a
ask you this.
huge starvation going on.
Oh my God, I did read that. Does UNICEF come into play? Because I read that UNICEF was very helpful, and I know that you work with them to try to help the remaining people in refugee camps. But I still did not compute, even in my reading, that there were people in the refugee camps that got there with you in
Right.
'91, and they're still
Yeah.
there.
They're still there, especially even my uncle wife that I told you that they have to take my dress.
Right.
She's still there. She's been trying to get out there, and probably she maybe like forget or say a question, because they have to interview you many times, and it will be months, and then they call you and interview you, and if you say one thing wrong, and English is not your first language, it kind of messed up your process. So there are people still in a refugee camp, but their life was okay until until this year when all the USAID program are shut down, where like the money is shut down to be given to refugees. So a lot of them right now, it was a sad story. I think 2 weeks ago, a whole family just left on foot. They was like, we're not gonna die here in a refugee camp, so we'll just try to track back to Sudan, but they die on the way because of like no food, and they got dehydrated. So it's really sad right now, the situation in the refugee camp.
That is amazing, Rebecca, and
Mhm.
unbelievable. I,
Yeah,
I,
and
I
how
just
God spare me like a right time, right? You know, uh,
exactly, and I read that you got out just before someone had arranged to marry you at the age of 14, and
yes,
when he came back, you were gone to America.
yes. Yeah, my teacher speed that process up. Yeah. So like God always bring angel in your life, and that's one of the thing I tell people. You can be in a situation where you feel like hopeless, but God always will bring an angel through a person. Look at her, we are talking here, we just met at the poolside. So you don't know how God use our stories to move the next person. It is all in his plan. And when I look back, I'm like, I'm not better than those that did not make it out of refugee camp. I'm not better than those girls that were my age and were married at an early age and died during childbirth because their hips is not developed yet, and there's no like medication. So most of them died during delivering time because
I read
but
that.
and I think that's why I choose to share my story to like give a window to the people that being a refugee, anybody can be a refugee. We even saw what happened in California with that wildfire that happened. Nobody was planning for it, but the next day you are houseless, and thank God, they can go to other part of the country that is safe. But if it
Right,
was all over United States, then suddenly, or what happened to Katrina, Hurricane Katrina, people living
right.
a normal life, and then natural disaster, and now you. So I tell people, anybody status can change anytime, and that's why we have to put our hope in God. When we were in a refugee camp, we cry every day. We need to get out of here. Nobody listened to us. That's how I become a Christian, actually. So the only place that I find someone that say, I will love you regardless of your status, was God and was Jesus. And his teaching makes sense to me. I become a Christian that way. And then when I came to United States, coming
You
from
came into
Africa,
Michigan. You were 15, right?
I was 15. Yeah, I was resettled in Michigan, predominantly white neighborhood, white school, very beautiful school, everything. But I grew up again, even if I was in a refugee camp, I grew up with a black privilege. So when people talk of white privilege, I know exactly because I grew up, I never thought of like my skin color, because why
Right.
would I? Everybody just look like me.
So the first times that you were discriminated against in this country, I read about that too. You were in the store. You were
Mhm.
stopped while driving because your neighborhood was predominantly white. I read
Mhm.
that you and your was it your foster sister were the only two people of color in your school.
Yes, I was the only one for a month, and then she joined, and we were the only people in the entire school, and then more children joined later on. Uh, but it was interesting because like even when I start driving, that it become more the racism thing become more for me to know when I was driving because at home with my foster family they are welcoming. They're these. The only thing I ask, I say, where are the black people? Because when I was in Africa, we see hip hop. It was mostly like black people and all of that, but here is so white, and they're like, oh, they are around, you know. I'm like, but where? You know? Uh, and so I will tease my foster mom because I'm like, where can I buy a lotion? You know, one with like shea butter or something like. Oh, we don't know, so they give me all of this white. Like, I'm like, my skin is itchy. So for years I just used Vaseline. What the that, that worked for me. But yeah, when I start driving, I will be pulled over, and then they will ask me, "Where you going?" I'm going home. Can I see your ID? I show my ID, and they're like, you mean you live in this address? And I say, yes, I live in that address. But I didn't know what it meant until I went to college because I started out as sociology, and that's when it hit me. And that's why I have a passion where the African or black people that come to this country sitting on the shoulders of what African American have done to have the privilege to go to like mixed school and all of that. We need to be educated like what it is because it become a crisis. I almost like have a mental breakdown. I was like, what in the world when I hear of like slavery? Because in high school they did really teach it much. So was in college, I'm like, I need to study sociology. And then I was like, oh, now it makes sense when I was pulled over and I'm asked, are you sure you live in that neighborhood? And I'll be like, in my mind, I'm like, is he having a bad day? What's wrong with him? Like in my mind, like, why would you ask somebody that? And it's because I had a black privilege where I was never asked, do you live here or there or whatever? Because anybody can live wherever they want to live. Yeah, yeah. So that
I
was
get
a
it.
very educated.
Imagine that was. I read about the time that you and your foster sister was with your foster dad, and you all went in to buy some. Was it ice cream?
Mm-hmm.
And they told you that they were closed or they weren't serving ice cream.
Yeah, so we were driving to California. My foster dad wanted to show us, Hollywood and LA and do some caving in like New Mexico and Arizona. Um, and my foster dad is white. He visited Kenya before, so he is very international minded. And so he's like chipping thing in a car. He's like, "Oh, girls, just go. Here's money. Just go and get some ice cream, and I will join you guys." So we went in there and we're like, "We want some ice cream." She's like, "Oh, actually, we are closed. We are not saving right now." And I'm like, okay. So we came back with like that, they are closed. And then he just kind of looked up and he saw somebody walking in and walking out with ice cream. And he said, I don't think they're closed. And I'm like, that's what she said. And so my foster dad was like, okay, you guys come with me, but let me go first. So he went first and he's like, I want some ice cream. And then she served her. And then we came behind her and like, we want ice cream. She kind of just like, oh, kind of like, look. And then my foster dad was like, well, my daughters were just here and you say you cannot serve and you just serve me. I need to talk to the manager right now. Yeah. So that, and we like, ooh, like what? And then it just like suddenly I'm like, oh, but because of my skin color, because in my mind it didn't make sense. Like, why would you mistreat somebody because of just the skin color and they have money? It
Welcome
didn't.
to America.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome to America. So,
Yeah.
when you began to study the history of this country in college, I'm sure it was a huge shock to you.
Yes.
The
Big
journey,
time.
and even from the beginning of when Africans were brought here, and all the way up into the 60s, with the civil rights movement, and in the years before. But that's when it really culminated, and the Civil Rights Act was passed by Lyndon Johnson after JFK was assassinated, to
Mhm.
give some of the rights that we had been fighting for years. uh,
Mhm.
we were only allowed to contribute free labor to this country for many years, and we were not allowed to have any other privileges. But the Civil Rights Act not only gave rights to us, it gave it to women, and it gave
Mm-hmm.
it to many other people of different origin and other nationalities.
Mm-hmm.
That
Different minorities.
all minorities. I don't think sometimes Asian or Latin people even think about it or understand the sacrifices that were made by African Americans to provide them the rights that they had, because they wouldn't have had them. If we didn't
Mm-hmm.
have them, they wouldn't have had them either, because they are considered a
Right.
minority country.
Mm-hmm.
So your
Mm-hmm.
story riveted me regarding all of the things that you've done, and I know, and you have already spent time talking about that. You wanted to spend some time making the distinction, which you have between refugees and immigrants. They are not one and the same. Basically, immigrants make the decision to come here. Refugees are forced from their home with only the clothes on their back in extreme
Mm-hmm.
situations. One of the stories that really riveted me, was you as a little girl having to flee from your village, and your mother was giving birth to your young sister. And when you had to leave your grandmother with her. No, your grandmother went with you. You had to leave your mom with the other women to give birth. And when they came and your mother wasn't there, and they just had your infant little sister, and they explained to you as a young child that your mom had passed during childbirth. And at some point, I gather, you all were able to go back to your village for a short period of time, and you saw the fresh grave that was your mom's, and you and
Yeah.
another child thought that they had made a mistake in burying her, and you thought you could dig her up
Mm-hmm.
because you wanted to let your mother out of the ground. That reading that, Rebecca, I'm not gonna kid you, being a mom's girl, and I was a dad's girl too, but that young, you were so young
Mm-hmm.
to think that and try to not understand. That was just wrenching for me. It took me a minute to, because your writing in the book is very, very vivid. And
Mm-hmm.
so I could visualize literally all of this happening. I could visualize you laying on the floor in your home, looking. You talked about looking at the moon and the stars and
Yeah.
how it would entertain you in the evenings. I could visualize all that on a clear night when there was no clouds. So
Mm-hmm.
thinking about
Yeah,
you,
there's no clouds and there's no lights because this is a village. And
right?
so, like, if you ever get a chance to travel in Africa, you will see the Milky Way. It's so vivid. It look like an ocean. It look like you are. It's
That's what you
so
said. It
clear
looked
at
like an
night. It's
ocean.
like so beautiful. Yeah, and yeah, that was the first time I heard of the word death. And my friend told me, "Oh, I think they just put her under the sand. We can dig her out or something like that." And that was one of the attacks. That was the first attack that happened when I test the war. You know, I heard that there was a war happening, so that attack happened first, and then because my mother was giving birth, people are running, and there's no hospital. She bleed too much, you know, and didn't make it. But we came back to the village, like you say, and I think we stayed for like, oh, maybe another year or so. So I had even forget about the war. And then the big war came, the one that displaced me. And
Right,
that's the war that I was separated from my grandmother. Uh,
right. And
mhm.
you were with your uncle's family.
And I was with my uncle family, the same family that are still in a refugee camp in Kakuma Refugee Camp now. So we arrived there ending of 1992, and they are still there. So she give like my uncle wife give birth to her girls there in a refugee camp, and now the girls have children. So you have like a three generation in a refugee camp. Yeah, yeah.
So you traveled back with your girls in 2009, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Um, was it, I know you went to a village in South Sudan where you picked flowers with a village girl of a village called, is it Atar?
Mm-hmm. Atar.
Atar?
Yeah, Atar. Mm-hmm.
Um, and was that a UNICEF trip, or did you just go back on your own?
So that's when I was doing my master's degree. I was doing a master's of organizational leadership, ministry leadership.
Hmm.
And part of that was to go overseas and do like like an internship overseas, and I choose to go back to South Sudan, but I choose to go back to a different village because I was not ready to like go to my own village that is not even there anymore and like trying to like deal with like my past. But I wanted to go to some part of Sudan to bring closure to me. And it was also during that time there was a lot of war going on in Darfur. So where I was actually was kind of closer to Darfur. Darfur is a region in Sudan. And so I started in Attar village doing teachers training for like 2 weeks and a half. And then I moved up to a place called Yabuz, which is a total, Attar village was Dinka tribe, but Dinka with
Which is
different
your tribe.
dialects.
That's your
Yeah,
tribe.
so it was my tribe, but Dinka have 7 different dialects of 6. So you have to really master different, like I can understand, but some terminology are different. So that was really cool. And then I went to Yabus, and that's where I was. I was there for 4 months, and that was 3 different tribes, like total different tribe than my tribe. I didn't even understand their language. The only way I can communicate with them was through Arabic, like my broken Arabic, and then English. Yeah. So I was there. So I went back there to deal with my past, to just kind of see what the country was, Sudan. Yeah, so that what that trip was about. It was during my graduate school.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I see now I for some reason I tried to connect. I know UNICEF um, is still working in South Sudan in refugee camps. They help with safe water, education,
Mhm.
maintaining families, tracing programs to work to reunite displaced children with their parents, and they also work in partnership to help children heal from the trauma they've been through psychological support. Do you volunteer with UNICEF, or you're just recommending people to give to UNICEF, or both?
I yes, I recommended people to give to UNICEF because UNICEF they have helped rescue me at one of their run before. So I know the work, and also when I was in Attar, that village, the school that was there was funded by the UNICEF. But then again, the UNICEF get most of their funding from the USAID, which is the United States.
Oh,
It's called the generosity of the American people. Like the Bible say, to whom much is given, much is required. And United States is a beacon of hope for the rest of the world. And when United States cut all of these things, we're gonna see in a year and so we're gonna see a lot of starvation around the world. Hmm.
has the funding, because this is my first hearing of this, but I am not surprised. Has the funding, because I'm sure that the Sudan area is not the only area that UNICEF is instrumental in. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, they are
They're
international.
instrumental
They
all over
are
the
in
world.
different war-torn countries or disaster. They are they
And so a large part of their funding came from the aid from the US.
yeah.
So this is going to be affected and felt all over the world.
Absolutely. And we have seen now in South Sudan, they are declaring a famine because a lot of the UNICEF funding come from the US aid. The US aid is implementing, it's not they just award money to organizations that already build relationship with local people that are there. That was our job as an American. That's why it's called a generosity of American people. But now with all of that cut, there's some European countries and Scandinavian countries are still, working. So those who get their funding from Norway and, Norway, Sweden, those Scandinavian countries, they have always been good at social, like social services helping humanity. So those organizations that get their funding heavily from the Scandinavian countries are still doing well, but everybody else that was like under the US aid is like struggling. They have to shut down, you know, um, they have to shut down their offices and yeah.
I read that over 70 million people were affected by what happened in Sudan with the civil war and the reason that you were displaced. So are most of them housed in the Kenyan refugee camps, or much like happened with Katrina, as you gave as an example, the people that were affected by Katrina ended up all over this country. So did the Sudanese people end up in Kenya and many other places?
Absolutely. So they end up in Kenya, some end up in Uganda, some went to Ethiopia, some even went to Khartoum, which is like the government that is displacing them. And some were just hiding in the bushes and like forests, Um, so what they call displacement. So there's internally displaced. So you can be displaced within your own country, which is what happened with Katrina all over Sudan. And then there's also displays where you go to a different country. That's when you become a refugee now. So there are different two track of refugees internally displaced. So you are displaced within your own country. You finding a place to hide because you didn't make it to the border of another country, or you are a refugee now, which is like you are in another country and you can have a job in that country in Kenya. So
Can't have a job in
no,
the
you cannot have a job. So you only depend on the erosion that they give to you. That's what you depend on. And so the only hope, and that's what I tell people, I say in a refugee camp, the only hope that you can provide for those people is sponsoring children. Like let somebody go to a Kenyan school and get education. And sometimes there's a program called WOOS is in Canada. They bring in a national student to go to universities here. That's the only way to leave those children out of that. Otherwise, you are in a refugee camp, you go to school there, and sometimes, they don't pay teachers, so the teachers are not teaching. Most of the time, it's the eighth people that graduated from eighth grade are teaching first graders, and those who graduated from high school are teaching like eighth
eighth
graders,
grade.
yeah, like that. And people just do it for themselves in a community.
So the students teach other students because the teachers are not compensated. They're not willing to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
So, well, it's probably greatly different now since the funding has been cut. So, but life as you knew it in the refugee camp in Kenya. So, how are you all housed, fed? I know the money came from USAID through UNICEF and other vehicles, but I guess what I'm asking about is just day to day life. And are you in contact with your family that's still there and has been there since '92? How did you get chosen to be able to come to America? All of that.
Mhm.
How does that work? And
Mhm. So for me, I qualify under the program, the Lost Girl of Sudan. That's how I
right,
end up coming here. And my
right,
teacher really put a pressure and put it on my case. She is a girl. She's very bright in class, but she's going to be post-married. So I guess that is speed my and God, big plan that I don't understand. So that's how I make it out. But then since I arrived in United States, I've been supporting them. I give them little money so they can go and buy. And I sponsor two girls. One of them, they both graduated from high school now, but I can afford like paying for college because like I'm even looking for a full-time job myself. So that is a struggle right there. But that's what most people did. Most people that came here, they just turn around, have two jobs, and then try to help people, give them money to buy food, buy clothes, and also putting some children through school. And
okay.
one of the kids that I put through school, which I'm so happy, he did really well, and he got a scholarship. So he's now at the University of British Columbia in Canada, and he's studying environmental engineer. He's so smart.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So that's what I keep telling people. I say that talent is universal, opportunities are not. Talent is universal. So talent, it doesn't know any race or whatever, it is universal, but opportunities are not.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's very true. That's
Mhm.
true in this country. There are a lot of talented
Yes.
kids that come from underprivileged neighborhoods or situations, and they don't get the opportunities because they simply can't afford it. They don't have access to it or anything like that. So they can't, they don't have the accessibility to bloom into their fullest potential. And it's so sad when you see it. So I get it.
And you can see what opportunity can do. Like when I arrived November 6, 2000, I came with zero English. My English was maybe like a third grade level, but because I have resources, I have people that mentor me. I have people that there's a library. There was audio to listen to English. I graduated from high school with like a honor. So I was in a honor society with a higher GPA, and I went to college. And English is not so. I always tell people, yes, like I say, talent is universal, opportunities are not. And look at how I've been thriving. So yes, I agree with you 100%. Everybody, when the village come around you and love you well and put the resources around you, you can thrive. There's no trauma or heartbreak that love cannot overcome. And the village have to love you. You have to have uncles and aunties, and they don't have to come from your own, bloodline. They can be everybody in your village, in your town, everybody coming around children. Like the Africans say, it take a village to raise a child. So it take a city, it take a town, it take a nation to raise children well, to be effective citizen.
That's very true. Very, very true. I am amazed at, and I know that, of how a world apart people can be, but yet how we are all alike.
Yes.
And that we all need the same things, and that we all need love. We all, of course, need God, and we all need resources, opportunities, and the people around us to undergird us, to help us, to guide us, to support us. That's a universal language across the world. You're absolutely correct, because just reading what you went through at such a young, tender age, and to stay in a refugee camp for 8 years
8 years
of your young life, and to
Mhm.
be just swept away on a plane and brought to this country, and to thrive the
With
way.
no $1, not even 50 cents. So when I was looking at refugees from South Africa and they have like Louis Vuitton bag I'm like, what kind of refugees? I didn't even have 50 cents on me when I arrived. Nothing. I have to work for everything.
Sometimes terms are used loosely when
Yeah.
they are to be used to satisfy an agenda.
Yeah, got it.
It's because someone says someone is a refugee doesn't mean it fits the full definition.
Yeah.
So sometimes I see why you were so adamant to clarify the definition of refugee opposed to immigrant. One has a choice or made a choice, the
Yeah,
other didn't.
like when the Irish payment, the potato payment in Ireland, people
Hmm.
came to United States. Some have money, some didn't have money. So I'm not saying that all the immigrants have money. Some probably don't have money, and even at the border, we see in the border where people come, probably they don't have money, but at least they have that, premeditated. Like I'm gonna cross the border, even if I will die of no food or water, but I'm going there.
Right.
Refugee, that decision is made for you. You're not even thinking. Maybe you are.
You don't have a home to go
Yeah,
back to.
we could be just like we talking. We are on our Zoom here doing our podcast, and boom, something happened, and we just kind of get scattered. You have to run, and by the time you find, so you literally running for your life, and then when you find your rest finally, where you are, everybody die, and you're like, oh, I made it. What happened? What's going on? Then that's when they're like, oh, actually, you are a refugee because you don't have a country to go to. Yeah.
Right. You don't have a home to go back to.
Yes.
And even though, yes, a lot of immigrants are very poor, they leave very challenging situations. They left their home voluntarily and not
Yes.
involuntarily. I
Mm-hmm.
get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because yes, many of them come here and they don't have
Mm-hmm.
anything but the clothes on their bag.
Yeah.
But
Now
it was
the settlement, when you are interviewed to come to America or Canada or Australia, that's a voluntary. Like when I used to like migrated, I was already a refugee. That is like, okay, yeah, I can go to United States. And that's how I came with other 89 girls. Some of the other girls, their family or caretakers were like, no, we're not sending you to a non-learn. In our culture it's better to send a boy, but a girl we don't even know, you don't have relatives there, they never been to United States, so they don't know anything. But for me, I put God first and I say that I'm gonna go to this country. I know I will thrive and I know God, because I kind of had like in my book, like I always have this like a real, when something big is about happen to my life, I always have a reoccurring dream. So before I even like get called by my teacher to apply for United States, I will always have this dream where I'm flying, I'm crossing a huge body of ocean, and I'm meeting friends on the other side of ocean, and we play. And every time the sun is about to set, they'll be like, oh, bye, Rebecca. And I will wake up and I'm in a refugee camp. And then I tell my uncle, I dream again, that dream. And then it's like, but who are those friends? I'm like, they are like, they were faceless. I know their voices, but I don't know what ethnicity, which I think is like United States. When I came later on, it's like, it's multiple, like ethnicity and race and background. Because I will just fly. And then my uncle said, what do they say? I say, we just have a good time. We play. And then when the sun is about to set, they'll be like, oh, Rebecca, you can go home now. We'll see you tomorrow. And then it will happen again the next night. Same dream. My uncle said, do you see their faces? I said, I don't see their faces. I just hear their voices. And they keep telling me, we have a good time. We laugh, we play. But when the sun is setting, they say, bye. We'll see you tomorrow, and I'm flying over. So when I got approved, I was afraid that my uncle would say no, because he kind of liked that guy. But then when my teacher and I finally tell him, he kind of just looked down for a minute and then he look up and he say, that was your dream. You're gonna fly over the ocean. You just don't know, because that was like my first time being in an airplane too. So it's like, you're gonna fly over the ocean, and now I know what is this recurring dream of yours. You're gonna go and meet those friends and you're going to thrive. That's what he said.
awesome.
And
But God
so
knew
I
that
will let
too.
you go. It's like
God,
in our culture, we don't let girl go to unknown place, unknown land, but I trust with your dream that you're gonna be okay.
yes, that was a huge leap. That was a huge leap. And I'm sure it was hard for him to let you go. But all that was in God's plan for your life. You were supposed to be right where you are, doing
Yeah.
what it is that you're doing. So I
Mhm.
know that you had an opportunity this week to appear at the Congressional Black Caucus in
Mhm.
DC, and that you spoke and that you had some book signings. I'm sure that was very exciting for you. Congratulations. And I know that your book will take you many places. When we were at the hotel this summer, you hooked up with a Yanela Van Zant, and
Mhm.
she was going to endorse your book. So
Mhm.
I know that there's a wonderful message in this book. There's a message of courage, there's a message of faith, there's a
Yeah.
message of perseverance, there's a message of trusting God totally, because you
Mhm.
had no idea even where you were coming, who you were going to encounter, if the family that had accepted you was going to indeed be a safe space. There are
Mhm.
many families out there that take foster kids, and just even here in this country, and they continue to abuse already abused children. And
Yeah.
because the system here is so broken as well as overwhelmed, they
Mhm.
keep putting these kids in these same terrible cycles. Sometimes I've heard stories of children being taken from an abusive home and being sent to an abusive foster home.
Yeah.
But you were blessed to land in a situation that was safe,
Mhm.
encouraging. You were
Yes.
covered, surrounded by prosperity and support from the other side of the world.
Yeah.
So
And you know the funny thing, they were waiting for a different girl until like 1 month before my arrival, and they called them and they say, "Hey, you know the name of the girl that you've been waiting for. Interview didn't go well. You have to do some, because the thing is you have to do medical checkup too. So if you have TB or some other diseases, they pull your file and you have to be treated. So they told them, they say that that girl, she's not gonna come, but we have this girl called Rebecca, and she can arrive in 3 weeks. And they say, sure, we don't know them anyway, but we were like, yes, so that girl ended up going to Washington, Seattle. The girl that was originally, they were waiting for her. That's the girl they got very early on. They have her file, and she was gonna come to them. And then, like 3 weeks before, when they did some medical stuff, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna send Rebecca," and they're like, "Sure." So again, it's like you say, it's God plan. Yeah.
It
And
was his
especially
plan.
having my foster dad as a white man that have a heart for different cultures. That was really, really good to have a positive male experience. He was a ball. He's just like so kind and encouraged me to like continue my education. So that was really good. And of course my foster mom too, you know, helping me with my daughter. That's another thing that happened during high
I read
school,
that. I
3
read
days before I
that
left the refugee
you
camp, I
you
was,
were molested
yeah,
and found out you were pregnant when you got to America.
and
That
find
had
out
to,
5 months and 5 months into my pregnancy, because they have done a pregnancy test a week before and sent it to my foster parent. And then it happened 2 days before I left a refugee camp. And when I first arrived, they did pregnancy test and it was negative. It didn't show because it was so soon.
mhm.
So when I was missing my period for 4 months, and I told my foster mom, she's just like, "Oh, it's a change of diet and you are young. And now the American food is different," because she couldn't understand like how can I be pregnant. They did a test 1 week before I left a refugee camp, and they did a test right away when I arrived, and they were both negative.
And no one was aware of what had happened to you. You didn't tell
Yeah,
it.
because when you are abused or raped, like it's emotionally draining, and you don't want to talk about it. And I told them later on, because we find out the day he invited me for the ultrasound for my foster brother, the first child. She's like, "You gonna?" And I'm like, "Who? They listen to baby?" Because they didn't have ultrasound in a refugee camp. So it was exciting for me. And she just gonna ask the nurse, she's been missing her period for like 5 months now, and she did a test before. We don't know. And she's like, "Okay." When she's done, we listen to my baby brother heartbeat, and then she turned to me, just touched my belly, and I think because she's a nurse, she probably might have felt something. Or so she just like, "Do you guys mind if I can lay her down?" And then when she put, like, I call it the magic wands, right? When she put it in my belly, we heard the same sound we were hearing.
As your foster mother.
Yeah, and that's how we find out that day that I was pregnant
Wow.
at the at the doctor office.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But I read how they were so helpful with with your baby in high school and you going on into college. You have an amazing story, Rebecca. Amazing. And I encourage everyone to find out more about what's going on in that area of the world and to
Yeah,
help
so
and
my
support.
school, and this is what I tell people. I say I came as immigrant refugee, ESL student, don't know English. And then on top of that, I become a teen mother. So most of my education, I finished my high school when I was already a mother, and when I did my, 4 years degree college
Yeah,
and did my master's degree. So I've been doing my studies as a mother, as a parent. And I all what I encourage people is that thing can happen. We don't choose this thing can happen to you, but as long you have a loving community, your dream don't have to die. When a
right.
disaster come your way, or when a heartbreak come your way, your dream don't have to die. if you have a supportive system, you can continue. And that's what happened to me. By the grace of God, I was able to continue.
That's amazing. Amazing. Well, I want you to let us know if you're going to be traveling, if you're going to be doing any additional book signings in the cities that you'll be going to. I know you're in DC now and that you're doing the Congressional Black Caucus. Will you have any additional book signings this week that will be open to the public?
So tomorrow and until Friday, I will be at the convention center in DC at the Congressional Black Caucus. I'll be doing book signing there. And then the next big thing is going to LA. I'm
That's
going to
right, the book
LA
award. That's
October 4 for my book just become a finalist book of the year. So I'm going with other people that the book become
right, right.
finalists, and
Other guests.
we're going to celebrate our art and our hard work. So that's LA. And then I think after LA, I have another gala in New York called Chiro's Award, Women
Mm-hmm,
of Faith,
mm-hmm.
So those are the things I have. And I might end up coming to Atlanta. One of the ladies that want to throw a birthday party. I'm going to be 40, December 6th. So when I know of the dates, I will share with you. And if your crowd
Please.
is close by and they want to stop by, that will be great to celebrate together.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And this book here, you can order wherever books are sold. So it is on Amazon, it is at Barnes& and Noble, it is at any library. Also, the audio one is narrated by C.D. LaLoca. She's the leading voice in Lion King, the musical.
Oh,
And she's South
wonderful.
African princess. So
And
she narrated the
that's
audio one.
Audible,
Yeah,
as
the
well
audible.
as I saw all four for sale on Amazon. They had the hard copy, the paperback, even the Kindle version is on
Okay.
Amazon, as well as the Audible is
Mm-hmm.
on Amazon. If you don't subscribe to have the actual Audible subscription, I think you can buy your book on Amazon through Audible and
Yes.
listen to it that way.
Yeah.
I saw all of that. Give the audience also, if they want to have you come in to speak or do a book signing or anything like that, the way that they can contact you.
Yeah, so you can contact me. I'm on LinkedIn, Rebecca Deng. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and I do speaking engagement. So I speak at universities, I speak at churches, I speak at conferences. They say that is a women conference or youth conference or teen conference or foster care kid conference or like just a university. And my book cover a lot of things, like a cover of war, a cover refugee and immigrant, a cover like teen related, early moms. So most of the time, like for example, the Department of Gender Studies, they like my book, Sociology Department, International Affairs and Relationship, So yes, if you know somebody and want to refer me to a university to come and do speaking engagement, I will come and do speaking engagement and do book signing also at churches.
Awesome. Awesome. And if for some reason you all cannot contact her, you can always reach her through Safe Space. My
Yes.
platforms are Safe Space with Shelby Arrington on Instagram, Facebook, as well as YouTube. Also, you can visit my website. My Safe Space website is safespacewithshelby.com. And there's an area where you can reach me, you can send me a message, and I will respond as well as get that information to Rebecca for her to reach back out to you. I know that the October 4th date is when you're going to be in California for the book of the year. I had one other guest on Safe Space that did a book called Birds with Broken Wings Still Fly, Overcoming Trauma. Her book is going to be considered for book of the year as well. So I'm wishing both of you well. Her name is Dr. Joanne Chestnut. Because I remembered that she's going to be in California on October the
Yes.
4th
So
with her
tell
book.
her to find me. I'm pretty sure I will find her. I'd love to
I
meet
will make
her.
sure that you all connect because I
Yes.
have both of you all's contact information, and I want to make sure that You all get a chance to meet one another. You got a chance to briefly talk to one another because I called her when I found out when we were on vacation that you are
Yes.
going to be at the same book award uh, ceremony. So,
Yes.
Rebecca, I want to thank you so very much for taking time out while you're there. I know you've been busy all day and you have a packed schedule because the caucus is a great event. I've had the opportunity to go back in the early 2000s and I still remember it. So you have a good time. Best of blessings with your speaking engagements and your book signings. And I know God has much, much more for you to share your story and to bless others that may be struggling in some way, that whether they're a teen mom pursuing their dreams and their educations, or someone trying to overcome their status here in the United States that have come here.
Or someone that is feel intimidated to go to higher education because they feel like they are not prepared. If this girl that came from a refugee camp with zero, education can do it, you can do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
English is not your first language.
Yeah.
You have to learn all of that. So,
Right.
very much so. You are very much so an overcomer with the help of God. So, I want to thank you for coming on Safe Space. Your information will be included of the video that will be downloaded on Facebook as well as YouTube. Again, I want to thank you for your time. And I promised one of my young ladies, we did a book study with my church. Women's ministry just before we came on. And I promised one of my young ladies, Bria, that I would shout out her new website. She is I think a second or third year teacher, but she's a young woman. So she launched her website. It's online ordering for her online bakery. And I'm going to spell the website because I don't want to mutilate the pronunciation. It's Sugar, SUGABAKER.com. And I'm going to ask LaShonda, I'm going to send her the information to include her information also in the credits of the show tonight. Again, Rebecca, thank you. I know you're busy. Thank you for taking the time to come on Safe Space and share your story. Many blessings to you. Everyone, go on Amazon and purchase this book, What They Meant for Evil. It is a wonderful story. It has many lessons that we all can use in our lives, depending on, it doesn't really matter where we find ourselves, but we can all use tools and have encouraging stories of motivation to push us through sometimes so we get stuck, because we all experience moments where we feel stuck. And this will motivate you. As she just said, she came from a refugee camp, came to this country at 15, knowing nothing and nobody, with not one dime in her pocket. And look at where she is today. What he does for one, he will do for another. He has no preference of person. Thank you again, Rebecca. Thank
Yeah.
you all for listening and watching Safe Space. This is Shelby. Good night. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Queen,
you.
and thank you, Safe Space. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Love.
Yeah. Bye.